Hello to all my fellow proud Indians and welcome back to Soldiers of India. Today is 14th of January, which is celebrated as Veterans Day. We have a very special guest with us today who will be talking about what Veterans Day means, why is it celebrated on 14th of January, what's the significance of this day, and a lot more.
I cycle a lot, 30 to 40 kilometers a day. तो शायद मैं शक्ल से फौजी लगता हूँ. मेरी एक रेजिमेंटल कैप है, वो पहन के मैं साइकिल करता हूँ. So only the other day, my wife was also cycling with me. There was a young lad who comes up to me. He said, "Sir, can I have a word?" He was on a scooter and I was on a cycle. I said, "Sure." He said, "Sir, are you an army person?" ये वो थोड़ा बहुत परिचय हुआ हमारा. And this boy, he must have been 18 or 19. As a civilian, he stood in attention. He said, "Sir, Jai Hind to you."
We have with us today Major General SHARABH Pachorry, a Vishisht Seva Medal awardee and a very senior retired officer of the Indian Army. Sir is an infantry officer who put in 36 years of service before he retired in July 2018. As you know by now, infantry is the frontline combat arm of the Indian Army, which entails difficult service in very hostile terrain conditions. General Pachory has seen action on all fronts of his long service. He has served on the Siachen Glacier, the highest battlefield in the world, as well as taken numerous tours of duty in Kashmir in counter-terrorism operations. And apart from Siachen Glacier in Kashmir, Sir has also served in Ladakh, the northeast, and the Thar Desert of Rajasthan. Pachory Sir then went on to serve as an instructor at the Indian Military Academy, Dehradun, as a captain. And later on, as a colonel, he was an instructor at the prestigious Defence Services Staff College in Wellington in Tamil Nadu. For his courage, dedication, and selfless service, General Pachory has been decorated 5 times throughout his career, including the Vishisht Seva Medal from the Honorable President of India.
A veteran is a term which we have actually taken from the United States Army. Earlier, those people who had retired from the Army, Navy, Air Force were known as ex-servicemen, which was not a bad term at all. But then a few years back, we decided to call ourselves, no, I would say rather people who retired honorably, I would say, from the Army. There's a connotation to honorable discharge and dishonorable discharge. Not go into those aspects. They are known as veterans. So today is the 6th Veterans Day. We started celebrating Veterans Day in 2017. So if 2017 was the first, so it would make 2022, if my arithmetic is right, it would make it the 6th day, 6th Veterans Day, right?
Yes.
So it is celebrated on 14th of January every year since 2017, as I just said, and it is basically to acknowledge and honor the devotion and commitment of soldiers, and of course their sacrifices and their service for the nation. And it was initially called the Armistice Day. Now, Armistice is a normal English term, which means temporary cessation of hostilities or an agreement between two warring nations to stop fighting for a certain period of time. Now, it is celebrated on 14th of January because the first commander-in-chief, as it was then called, what is today called the Chief of Army Staff, was Field Marshal. Actually, he was then General. He became Field Marshal later. I shall talk more about this. Was General K.M. Cariappa, which is Kodandera Madappa Cariappa. Okay. One of the most legendary soldiers, I would say, of the Indian Army, and I shall talk about his contributions in due course of time. So he retired from service on 14th of January 1953 after having done 3 years as the commander-in-chief, the CNC, as it were, of the Indian Army. And since he retired on that particular day, we thought it prudent to have this particular day, that is 14th of January, as Veterans Day.
So, sir, I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you that, how do veterans, after serving for so many years in the uniform and living such a disciplined life, how do they fit themselves into the civil life after retirement?
Okay, that's a good question, Mishka. And let me be honest and upfront in answering that. A lot of us do have initial problems in settling into what we call civvy street. Uh, you see, we in the army or any of the other services, Navy, Air Force included, lead a very insulated life. Insulated as in cut off from
Yeah.
the vicissitudes, the hassles, the problems, the other influences. I would not say necessarily evil influences, but several influences which come to play or which are brought to bear in civil life. So indeed, for some, the transition is not very easy, but for others, it is like till today you are wearing the uniform, and the next day you're out of it. When, as we call in the army, you ride into the sunset and you hang your uniform. So, but yes, let me say with my own experience, I've been retired for about 3.5 years now. Uh, uh, Certain aspects about civilian life uh, are pretty alien to a defense person, and it is basically adaptation and adjusting to things which you have not been exposed to. I do not want to castigate or cast aspersions on any particular segment of society. Everyone, as I have always said in several other talks that I've been on, is doing the job. It's only that we wear a uniform and we wear arms for the country. And perhaps lately, thanks to social media and wonderful people like you, we have been, better known now in the last 7 to 8 years than we have been in the past. This adjustment, as you spoke about, coming back to your question, is is not very simple, but at the same time, as they say, you have to grin and bear it. You adjust, and as time goes by, as I've seen in my own case, you accept certain things as a normal part of life. Except, and this exception is something that I'd like to emphasize on, you do not adopt and adapt. There's just a difference of a vowel of O and A, but I'm sure your very intelligent viewers will understand. To some of the ways that you see in civil, and an army man or a navy or an air force man, a woman now equally, they uphold their culture, their character, their traditions, their discipline, as you started your question with, in all facets of life, and they also bring it, and some of it touches uh, uh, those that they come in contact with and
That
rubs
was
off well. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that was my
that
next
is
question, sir. यही मुझे पूछना था कि जो आर्मी की ट्रेनिंग होती है, जो डिसिप्लिन लाइफ आप जीते हैं, एंड दे से वंस अ सोल्जर ऑलवेज अ सोल्जर, तो क्या वो ट्रेनिंग आपको हेल्प करती है टू ट्रांजिशन इनटू द सिविल लाइफ?
ये एक थोड़ा सा पेचीदा सवाल है, क्योंकि ये दिस कट्स बोथ वेज।
या
एक्चुअली ये हमारी ट्रेनिंग ही है,
हाँ,
और जो हमारे में ये अनुशासन और एक प्रतिबद्धता, कमिटमेंट, दैट इज डिवोशन, डेडिकेशन, जो मैं बार बार कहूंगा, आई वुड नॉट लाइक माय व्यूअर्स एंड यू आल्सो टू थिंक दैट only that because we wear uniform and bear arms for the country, it makes us special. Every person in the country is working for the nation, चाहे वो प्राइवेट सेक्टर में हो, सरकार में हो, कॉर्पोरेट में हो। तो ये ट्रेनिंग की जहां तक आपने बात करी, जो कुछ हम इवन जैसे आपने कहा वंस अ सोल्जर ऑलवेज अ सोल्जर, तो वो हम अपनी ट्रेनिंग के कारण नहीं होते, और ट्रेनिंग वही नहीं होती जो हम सिर्फ प्री कमीशन टाइम में एक सोल्जर बनने के लिए नेशनल डिफेंस एकेडमी या इंडियन मिलिट्री एकेडमी या ऑफिसर्स ट्रेनिंग एकेडमी चेन्नई वगैरह में करते हैं, बल्कि ऑल थ्रू अ सर्विस एवरी डे इज ट्रेनिंग, बिकॉज यू आर ऑलवेज प्रिपेयरिंग फॉर द नेक्स्ट वॉर एंड सो मेनी अदर थिंग्स। वो एक बड़ा पेचीदा विषय है, मैं उसमें नहीं जाना चाहूंगा। तो ये ट्रेनिंग मैं आपके सवाल का अगर बिल्कुल ही एक ऑनेस्ट जवाब दे सकूं, तो ये दोनों दोनों किस्म से काम करती है। एक तरफ से तो ये हमको अडेप्टेबिलिटी सिखाती है कि भाई
हाँ,
जिस किस्म की भी परिस्थिति हो, हम लोग जंगलों में, पहाड़ों में, रेगिस्तान में,
हाँ,
काउंटर इंसर्जेंसी में और हर किस्म की जगह काम करते हैं।
हम्म,
और दूसरी तरीके से एक एक ऐसे जीवन के लिए हमको तैयार करती है जिसको कि सिविल लाइफ में अपनाना या अडेप्ट करना थोड़ा मुश्किल होता है। तो
हम्म,
मेरा जवाब आपको ये है कि ट्रेनिंग दोनों तरीके से काम करती है, और
हम्म,
बट ऑन बैलेंस ये दोनों बातों को कहने के बाद मैं ये कहना चाहूंगा कि जी, जी हाँ, कहीं ना कहीं हमारी ट्रेनिंग, एंड एज आई सेड, ट्रेनिंग नॉट ओनली बिफोर यू बिकम एन ऑफिसर और जवान और सिपाही और हवलदार। मैं जवानों के बारे में भी उतनी बात कर रहा हूँ, मैं जो कुछ भी मैं कह रहा हूँ वो उतना
हम्म,
ही ऑफिसर्स के लिए एप्लीकेबल है जितना जवानों के लिए, बिकॉज आफ्टर
yes,
ऑल हमारी करीब 13-14 लाख की आर्मी में 12.5 लाख से ज्यादा तो जवान ही है। ऑफिसर्स
correct,
तो करीब 45 से 50 हजार के बीच में है।
correct,
तो ये जरूर मैं अपने व्यूअर्स को बताना चाहूंगा कि आई एम स्पीकिंग एज एन ऑफिसर इन बोथ इंग्लिश, बट जो पहलू मैं आपसे जिक्र कर रहा हूँ वो जवानों के लिए भी लागू है। तो ट्रेनिंग का जवाब मिश्का छोटा सा ये है कि वो हमें मदद भी करती है और कहीं कहीं आड़े भी आती है। और
हम्म,
मैं कहना चाहूंगा अपने तजुर्बे से कि मदद ज्यादा करती है और इट इज लेस ऑफ अ हिंड्रेंस। सो इफ दैट
okay,
आंसर्स योर क्वेश्चन, इफ
yes.
नॉट आई एम विलिंग टू
No,
गो
it
फर्दर।
does. It
या
absolutely does. Okay, sir. क्या contribution veterans कर सकते हैं towards the betterment of the country and society?
Yes. Again, here, my personal experience has been that, our veterans, and I mean our Jawans, junior commissioned officers and officers, are not employed or are not exploited or not used in the manner that they can towards nation building and contribution, other than in individual capacities. मैं समझता हूं कि जो अनुशासन है हमारा, जो प्रशिक्षण है, ट्रेनिंग है, हमारी जो एक ऑर्गेनाइजिंग एबिलिटी होती है, एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एक्यूमेन होता है, वो न केवल गवर्नमेंट में बल्कि प्राइवेट, पब्लिक एंड कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर में भी उसका बहुत ऑप्टिमल इस्तेमाल किया जा सकता है फॉर बिल्डिंग अ बेटर सोसाइटी, a better nation, and both you and I and everybody who's listening has at the core of their hearts, everybody would like to see a strong India and a prosperous nation. तो इन सारे क्षेत्रों में, जैसे मैंने कहा, गवर्नमेंट, प्राइवेट, पब्लिक, कॉर्पोरेट, और भी जैसे एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप होती है, स्टार्टअप्स होते हैं, तो इन सब में बिकॉज हमारे सबसे बड़े एसेट्स होते हैं हमारी डिसिप्लिन, हमारी एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एंड ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल एबिलिटी, आर प्लानिंग, स्ट्रेटेजाइजिंग, इवन इवन इन एजुकेशन। मैं अपना खुद का आपको अगर उदाहरण दूं तो मैं आप लोगों को लगेगा कि एक आर्मी वाला एजुकेशन की कैसे बात कर रहा है।
Hmm.
So I have taught as a young captain in the Indian Military Academy in Dehradun, and then later on as a colonel, I was an instructor. We call it DS, Directing
Yes.
Staff in Staff College, Wellington, जो कुनूर के पास है, जहाँ अभी unfortunately हुई,
Yes.
जिसमें जनरल बिपिन रावत and so many precious lives, other precious lives were lost.
Yeah.
तो मैं आर्मी में शिक्षक भी रहा हूँ, और मैं ही नहीं, बहुत से और हम जैसे लोग रहते हैं।
Hmm.
तो and in any case what happens that when you're in senior ranks, as I was fortunate to be, you are the chairperson of certain army institutions, army public schools, and anybody who's devoted, as most of us are, always contribute towards betterment of whether it's a school or a college. Incidentally, the Army Education Society runs a lot of colleges and schools in which civilian children also are allowed. किसी और प्रोग्राम में अगर आप मुझसे बात करना
हाँ.
चाहेंगी तो मैं आपको इन सारे इंस्टीट्यूशंस के बारे में बताना चाहूंगा.
Yes.
And as a major general, as a general officer commanding, I was looking after a few of these institutions, including Sainik schools, which are there in all the states, almost all the states. तो शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में भी इस तरीके से हम काफी योगदान दे सकते हैं. और मैं ये इसलिए नहीं कह रहा हूँ कि मैं कोई एम्प्लॉयमेंट सीख कर रहा हूँ, या employment is not a problem. Lot of the corporate houses now, lately, thanks to again efforts of good people like you, are recognizing the worth of defense
Veterans.
forces people, veterans, and how they can contribute to their organization, whether it is in the industrial sector or the
Corporate
banking
sector.
sector or corporate sector or public sector or
Yes.
anywhere else. So
Correct me if
the
I'm wrong,
contribution
sir.
to
Yes, sir.
yeah,
So
please
that's what I
go ahead.
wanted to give a little input. I have spoken to so many veterans now. I've interviewed them, and they're all doing very different things in life. कुछ लोग corporate sector में jobs कर रहे हैं, उसमें भी कोई finance में है, कोई HR में है, और कोई खुद के businesses कर रहे हैं. And I must say that all of them are doing extremely well for themselves, only because the kind of life army men lead, army men and women, all of them, the discipline, the adaptability, the drive, waking up every single day and just achieving the task in front of you. Also, एक जो कहते हैं ना हर पल अलाइव होना, ये मैंने आर्मी मेन में देखा है. हर पल को पूरी तरह जीना is what I think army life trains you for, teaches you, which in turn makes them successful in any aspect of life. Whatever they choose to do post retirement, I've just seen them flourish. Am I right, sir?
Yeah. They wherever they have been, they have made a name for themselves,
Yeah.
and they have contributed in a very healthy manner to the progress, growth of that particular organization. यहाँ मैं एक छोटी सी बात आपसे और कहना चाहूँगा. जैसे जो हमारे जवान हैं, junior commissioned officers हैं, most of them, in fact, most all of them almost come from rural backgrounds. और आपको मालूम है कि हमारे रूरल एरियाज में एम्प्लॉयमेंट अपॉर्चुनिटीज और एवेन्यूज उतने ज्यादा नहीं है. तो अब छोटी छोटी चीजें हैं, जैसे एम्फेसिस ऑन फिजिकल फिटनेस एंड स्पोर्ट्स. Today a lot is happening in that area. That recently we had a sports university inaugurated in Meerut by the Honorable Prime Minister. तो ये जो हमारे चाहे वो हवलदार हो, नायक हो, नायब सूबेदार हो, या इसी तरीके से नेवी एयरफोर्स के नॉन ऑफिसर कैडर के जो लोग हैं, they can help the youth of the village to lead a more disciplined life, because होता ये है कि कई दफा या तो ये माइग्रेट कर जाते हैं बड़े शहरों में, और या तो फिर they sort of go into habits like drugs and all, which is a rampant problem in certain parts of the country. So that is also not a small contribution. और मैंने देखा है मेरे यूनिट के और मेरे रेजिमेंट के कई लोग हैं, वो सवेरे 5:30 बजे, जो 18 से 22, 23, 24 साल के लड़के और अब लड़कियां भी, becoming that way a very open society even in rural India, they take them for a run. They have created many obstacle courses, वो खेत वेत के आसपास, और उनको फिर थोड़ी बहुत डिसिप्लिन और दूसरी चीजों के बारे में बातचीत करना. They are not preparing them for anything specific कि भाई आप इसको करने से फलाने जॉब में चले जाएंगे. But if nothing else, they are firstly ensuring that this youth doesn't go astray, and secondly preparing them for a life in whatever vocation they might eventually choose. तो ये एक और बात मैं आपसे यहाँ पर.
And sir, how do veterans look after their own after they shed the uniform?
Okay. Yeah, so that's again a very interesting question. You see, the army is not a 9 to 5 job. We don't treat the army, navy, or the air force for that matter. When I say army, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you always take it that, because I am aware that if some navy or air force person is watching this, he or she may not take offense. I mean it in the generic sense of defense forces, which totally is incorrect language, which is not expected of a senior officer like me. But कहीं मेरे चूंकि मैं आर्मी में रहा हूँ, तो जुबान से आर्मी ही निकलता है. तो तो मैं आपको ये बता रहा था कि आर्मी इज अ वे ऑफ लाइफ, और द डिफेंस सर्विसेज इज अ वे ऑफ लाइफ. इट्स नॉट अ 9 to 5 जॉब. एंड द आर्मी इज अ बिग फैमिली. और ऐसा नहीं कि आप आज रिटायर हो गए, जैसे मैं आई रिटायर्ड आफ्टर 36 years of service, so therefore the army बोलती कि हाँ भाई ठीक है, अब आपको जय हिंद, आप जाइए. There are number of things into which because they are specific to services and they may not interest our civilian viewers too much, but फिर भी मैं बहुत संक्षिप्त में ये बताना चाहूंगा कि कई ऐसी चीजें हैं जो आर्मी, नेवी, एयरफोर्स अपने रिटायर्ड ब्रेदरन एंड सिस्टर्स के लिए भी करते हैं। सबसे पहले तो देखिए, आज हर एक बड़े मिलिट्री स्टेशन में एक वेटरन सेल आजकल हो गया है, which is headed by a colonel, sometimes who comes under a brigadier or a general,
हम्म
जो कि सारे वेटरन रिलेटेड प्रॉब्लम, जैसे समझ लीजिए मैं लखनऊ में रहता हूँ,
हम्म
यहाँ पर एक बहुत बड़ा कमांड हेडक्वार्टर है,
हम्म
तो वहां पर एक सब एरिया वगैरह है, उसमें मैं नहीं जाऊंगा, वहां एक वेटरन सेल है। एवरी अदर डे आई वुड गेट अ कॉल फ्रॉम द कर्नल वेटरन, एज ही इज कॉल्ड, हर एक स्टेशन में होता है कि सर एनी प्रॉब्लम्स, एनी हेल्प यू नीड, कैन वी
वाओ
हेल्प यू इन एनी। Yes, and that includes small personal things as well. Then
हम्म
there is, of course, the medical facilities. We have something known as ECHS, which stands for Ex-Servicemen Contributory Health Scheme, which is something like the central government health scheme, CGHS कहते हैं. So for lifelong, I, my wife, and my dependent children, as long as they are dependent, and my parents also, if
हम्म
they are not earning,
हम्म
they do not have an income which is beyond something or the other. वो
या
चीजों में हम नहीं जाएंगे. So the best of medical facilities are available to them throughout life. Then, of course, you would have heard of canteen facilities and
यस
CSD, etc.
या
Then you have something known as Zilla Scenic Boards. Every district, Zilla is a district, has its soldiers, sailors, and airmen boards, as they are called. हिंदी में उसको हम जिला सैनिक बोर्ड कहते हैं. So they help mostly the non-officer cadre in their re-employment and resettlement in civil life. देखिए होता क्या है कि एक आम जवान जो होता है,
हम्म
he retires at 37, 36, 35 years of age
ओ
after 17 years of service. Now that is the time a lot of people start their service. उतना लेट
या
तो नहीं, लेकिन इसके बाद कई
30
लोग करते
हाँ
हैं. Yeah, and what at that stage in life, उसकी जिम्मेदारियां बढ़ती रहती हैं, उसके बच्चे बहुत छोटे होते हैं,
हम्म
पेरेंट्स आर ओल्ड, और आजकल सोसाइटी ऐसी है कि एस्पिरेशन सबके
हम्म
हैं, थैंक्स टू टेलीविजन एंड द
सोशल मीडिया
proliferation of the internet and social media.
या
So this person needs to earn. Of course, he gets a pension,
या
but that pension, though it is reasonably healthy,
हम्म
uh, but it may not be sufficient for him
या
to meet his. देखिए वो 35 या 36 या 37 साल की उम्र में रिटायर होकर के, even if you take his life expectancy to be 65, 70, so he has another 35 years for which he is good, physically fit and healthy.
करेक्ट
तो ये ऑफिसर्स के लिए भी होती है. एट द आर्मी हेडक्वार्टर लेवल वी हैव I will not go into the details of that, but we have a re-employment or an officers placement cell which helps officers who are retiring in the last 6 months
हम्म
to 8 months of service in finding a suitable placement depending on their qualifications. Army में, Navy में, Air Force में, there are technically qualified also,
यस
engineers, and so many others. And
ऑल्सो
non-technical people like me, like I'm an infantry officer, but I am fortunate that I'm also working in a in,
या
in, a, in, a, in, a, in a large company in Mumbai, on the board of directors. So इस तरीके से आर्मी. अच्छा, इसके अलावा कोई भी फंक्शन होगा तो ऑफिसर्स को, जवानों को साल में कम से कम एक दो बार, ऑफिसर्स को तो बहुत ज्यादा, बट जवानों को बुलाया जाता है. There are सैनिक मेलास which are held. I, as a GOC, I remember calling more than I think 7,000-8,000 ex-servicemen from the area where I was, villages. I arranged transport, etc., just to listen to their problems. किसी का pension से related problem होता है. Anyway, I can go on and on,
या
but the thing is
दैट्स
that the
वंडरफुल
defense
सर
forces, yeah, the defense forces do look after their own,
या
and right
And
till
there's
their
also, I
death.
would like to tell my viewers about this wonderful thing that I got to know after I started doing these interviews, that the armed forces officers, after they retire, the Indian armed forces have tie-ups with IIMs across India. And there's a short course that our veterans can do there. And then they get placed as well after that, which is absolutely
Absolutely right.
wonderful.
Yes, yes. I myself did a course in corporate governance from a very noted management institute in Gurgaon before, in my last 3-4 months of service, which
Okay,
actually helped me find a placement in corporate world later. So
exactly.
yes, that is also there, and there
Yeah.
are several other small things.
Yeah.
But suffice it to say कि मैं सिर्फ इतना बताना चाहूंगा दर्शकों को कि
Mhm.
army is a family,
Yeah.
defense forces are a family, and they look after. यहाँ तक मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगा, थोड़ा सा morbid sound करेगा कि let us say an officer or even a Jawan dies at the age of 80, 90, 40, 50, 30 years after leaving the force. His last rites are his unit and regiment and others. They help even in
Oh,
that. चाहे उनका 2000 किलोमीटर दूर हो unit वहां
wow.
से. So it is from cradle to grave, as they say.
That's
So
beautiful.
that I'm very proud to tell my viewers
Share
that
that.
in that sense it's a great organization. As it is, I
Yeah.
would like to add in
Yeah.
another sense.
Yeah, it's one big family, and it's so wonderful to know
Definitely.
this. I didn't know about this. Okay, sir,
Yeah.
would you be able to tell us something about Veterans Day in other countries? How
Yes, you see, any nation worth its salt does have its Veterans Day to honor, as I said right at the beginning of the show, the sacrifices and services of its veterans. Uh, in America, for example, they have on 25th of May what is called the Memorial Day. That is, of course, to commemorate the those who died for the country in several wars, starting from the Civil War, etc. And it's celebrated with great fervor and pomp and show. It's a national holiday. It's a national holiday over there.
wow.
And uh, so, and we have, for example, our own, in addition to Veterans Day and Army Day, about which we shall be talking, for example, Vijay Divas, which is on 16th of December, to celebrate our victory over Pakistan in 1971. And one interesting fact which I would like to share with your viewers that the International Veterans Day, mostly in Europe, which was heavily involved in both the world wars actually, is 11th of November. And why it is on 11th of November is that uh, uh, that World War One ended on 11 on the 11th month uh, uh, of the 11th day of the 11th month
Yeah,
and
yeah,
at the 11th hour.
yeah.
और इसका एक कारण है कि आपने देखा होगा कि वो एक येलो मैरीगोल्ड
Yes.
फ्लावर लगाते हैं. मैंने अपनी
हाँ,
कहीं डीपी वगैरह में भी शायद लगाया है, मुझे ख्याल नहीं है.
हाँ.
और उसमें एक लीफ होती है, एक्चुअली होना चाहिए लेकिन बहुत से लोग नहीं लगाते. मैं आपको ट्रेडिशन बता रहा हूँ. दैट लीफ along with that flower is supposed to point at the 11 o'clock direction. घड़ी की जो
Oh,
सुई होती है
okay.
जो 11 बजे की तरफ, जैसे
हाँ,
अगर आप मेरी उंगली देते हैं तो 12 बजे
हाँ,
इज लाइक दिस, 1 o'clock is like this, 11
हाँ.
o'clock is, I do not know if you're seeing me in the
Yeah, no.
lateral inversion. So that leaf is supposed to be pointing at the 11 o'clock direction. So
Okay.
that is the और भी countries के होते हैं बहुत से, पर
Hmm,
उतना विस्तार में मैं नहीं जाना चाहूंगा.
hmm.
But this is how the 11th November being the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month is internationally, particularly in European countries,
Hmm.
celebrated
Yes,
as Veterans Day. So
correct.
that is
So,
how it
but
is. Yeah.
would you like to share your thoughts on how veterans are treated in India versus how they're treated in the USA or even maybe Pakistan? If
You see, Pakistan, I would like to talk about because Pakistan is more or less a military state,
yeah,
right? I'm not here to make political statements, but
yeah,
I write about these things in my think tank and others that I'm a member of. So there, while you're serving or you have heard of people, Field Marshal Ayub Khan onwards, appointing themselves as presidents and so on and so forth.
yeah,
तो वहाँ क्या veteran और क्या वो तो मतलब there the army has a nation rather than the nation having an army. So Pakistan would not be. But yes, they respect their as soldiers, though we are enemies. We
absolutely.
when we are on the battlefront, as we have been a lot, across the line of control, etc. He's doing for history what you're doing for your country.
Yeah,
In that sense, there is an unwritten ethos that we follow. So I'm not criticizing their soldiers as such. As
yeah,
far as your question of treatment of veterans in India is concerned, I would say that more needs to be done.
yeah,
I happen to travel to USA and some other countries where indeed the honor and respect and courtesies extended to veterans, particularly old veterans, is more than it is in India. And there's a reason for that. The reason for that is that most people there, not this generation, but I
mm,
would say up to the, they had the Vietnam War, their troops were involved in Iraq, and so many. In fact, USA has hardly any hostile borders of its own. Mexico, Canada, and all, they hardly have any problem. So it is USA is an army which operates in various commands across the world, and they have their multinational presence, as it is called. It's an expeditionary army more than any other thing. So many people have served in the army, and their culture, if I may use a word which may not be too appropriate here, there is quite different from what it is in India. Awareness about the
Yes.
military
Yes.
is much more.
Yes.
In India, the awareness, in fact, when I talk to a lot of educated youngsters, I'm glad that I'm talking to a very bright youngster like you. But when I talk to a lot of people, I'm appalled at their lack of knowledge. मैंने
हाँ.
एक बार पूछना चाहा, मैं आप इसको एडिट करना चाहें तो एडिट कर दीजिएगा। किसी मतलब मैं कॉलेज का नाम नहीं लूंगा, बट बड़ा फेमस कॉलेज है हमारे हिंदुस्तान का,
हाँ.
कि कितने पीवीसी हुए हैं इंडिया में, और फर्स्ट पीवीसी आई मेंट परमवीर चक्र. This girl, it was a girl, thought I was talking about polyvinyl chloride or something.
Oh
So
my
that
God.
is, I'm saying, this is not the condition everywhere. Those of you who know, please don't get me wrong. There are a lot of bright, smart youngsters. Some people say हमको इससे क्या लेना देना. तो मेरा उनसे यही जवाब होता है कि देखिए, जिनको पीवीसी मिला, पॉस्टुमस मिला, महावीर चक्र मिला, कुछ भी नहीं मिला,
हाँ.
उन्होंने अपने लिए थोड़ी ये किया कि अब मेरे परिवार को ये तमगा मिल जाएगा या कुछ पैसे एक्स्ट्रा मिल जाएंगे. Done it for the nation.
Yes.
So the nation at least should know about them. मैंने तो यहाँ तक लिखा एचआर मिनिस्ट्री वगैरह में कि why don't we teach some of this modern day battles and about our modern day heroes, like Vikram Batra and Bana Singh and Manoj Pandey and all these people in our school textbooks, so that our
Exactly.
children know about them. तो मैं आपके सवाल का जवाब सिर्फ ये देना चाहूंगा कि मेरी समझ में more needs to be done
Absolutely.
and this is not a government function, really, not a government function. If
No.
I'm traveling in a bus or an airport or in an airplane or a train, I don't expect कि मेरे लिए कोई खड़ा हो जाए या मुझे कोई जय हिंद बोले सलूट करके. पर अगर मैं आपसे बात कर रहा हूं तो आप इतनी इज्जत बख्श दें कि हाँ भाई, इस आदमी ने और इसके परिवार ने.
Yes.
Someday I'll talk to you about the sacrifices which the families make, which
Yes.
nobody ever seems to understand.
Yes.
Your years and years of separation, and children going to, my children studied in 13 schools or 14 schools before they finished their 12th, and like everybody else's, मैं कोई इसमें exception नहीं हूँ. और बहुत से और ये बार बार मैं कह रहा हूँ कि हर एक सर्विस में सैक्रिफाइस होते हैं, वो चाहे इसकी सर्विस हो, यूनिफॉर्म कोई और सर्विस हो, रेलवेज की हो, बैंक की हो, कॉर्पोरेट हो. तो ऐसे मत समझिएगा कि मैं यहाँ पर कोई बड़ा, लेकिन चूंकि मैं अपने
नहीं सर, बट ऐसा नहीं जो, बट आई हैव टू से दिस दैट जो आर्म्ड फोर्सेस के सैक्रिफाइसेस हैं, नो अदर जॉब कैन कंपेयर देमसेल्व्स. There's absolutely no comparison.
I'm really honored to hear that. But अगर मैं खुद ये बोलूंगा तो वो उतना उचित नहीं लगेगा.
नहीं sir,
Coming from you,
the whole point of Soldiers of India, why I started this, is this. When as someone who's born and brought up in Mumbai, when I decided to start this, I was completely clueless about what are the ranks, what are the hierarchy, what's the hierarchy in the Indian Army, अच्छा क्या process होता है to get in, कुछ भी नहीं पता था. And I would blame our education system. This is the first thing that I thought of, that we learn about civics, we learn about history. Why don't we learn about our Indian Army, the real heroes of the country? ठीक है, freedom मिल गई 1947 में, वो हमने सबने पढ़ लिया, लेकिन उसके बाद भी बहुत कुछ हुआ है which the children, the generation today needs to know about. Second thing that you mentioned that again I feel very deeply about is जो एक वेटरन्स के लिए या हमारे जवानों के लिए, आर्मी ऑफिसर्स के लिए जो रिस्पेक्ट सिविलियंस में नहीं है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, जब ये कोविड वॉरियर्स के लिए इंडियन एयरफोर्स ने वी ड्रॉप्ड फ्लावर्स फॉर देम एंड डन दैट लिटिल सेरेमनी फॉर देम, एंड इवन वो जो थाली बजाना किया था पूरी कंट्री ने एक साथ मिलकर, इफ यू रिमेम्बर इन द फर्स्ट लॉकडाउन फॉर आवर कोविड वॉरियर्स. wonderful. I was very happy that we're showing respect to someone at least. But the first thought that came to my mind was, why do we not do this for our martyrs, for our soldiers? हम क्यों साल में एक दिन, जैसे वेटरन्स डे हो गया, why can't all of us be in our balconies and windows, थाली क्यों नहीं बजा सकते, क्लैप क्यों नहीं कर सकते उनके लिए? Why not? तो I feel like
Yeah,
बहुत ही
absolutely.
we
I'm so touched by these thoughts of yours, and indeed, more needs to be done. And
yeah,
I'm not seeking any material help,
I know,
from the nation. I'm only seeking recognition,
yeah,
recognition in the sense that, but
acknowledgement
equally,
rather,
yeah,
acknowledgement of your
equally, I
service.
must say. एब्सोल्युटली बट जैसा कि मैंने एक क्रिटिसिज्म में एक बच्ची के बारे में आपको अभी बताया,
हाँ,
उसी प्राइड के साथ मैं आपको ये भी बताना चाहूंगा, लाइक आई साइकिल अ लॉट,
हाँ,
30 to 40 किलोमीटर अ डे। तो शायद मैं शक्ल से फौजी लगता हूँ और मेरी एक रेजिमेंटल कैप है, वो पहन के मैं साइकिल करता हूँ। सो दी ओनली द अदर डे माय वाइफ वाज आल्सो साइक्लिंग विद मी, देयर वाज
हाँ,
अ यंग लैड हु कम्स अप टू मी, ही सेड सर कैन आई हैव अ वर्ड। ही वाज ऑन अ स्कूटर
हम्म,
एंड आई वाज ऑन अ साइकिल। आई सेड श्योर। ही सेड सर आर यू एन आर्मी पर्सन? ये वो थोड़ा बहुत परिचय हुआ हमारा। And this boy, he must have been 18 or 19. As a civilian, he stood in attention. He said, "Sir, Jai
wow,
Hind to you." So I was so
wow,
touched. I said, "This was in Lucknow." So
wow,
there are, जैसे आप कह रही हैं, and this
हाँ,
is thanks to people like you, and so many others who have
हम्म,
created an awareness.
हम्म,
तो ये मेरा सिर्फ छोटा सा इसका उत्तर यही है कि
हम्म,
more recognition, more acknowledgement of their
yeah,
sacrifices, commitment, services
yes,
needs to be there, both at the institutional level and
yes,
at the individual level.
yes,
Uh, uh,
absolutely.
so, uh, और किसी ने कहा है जैसे कि a country which does not respect its veterans is doomed to, चलिए वो बड़ी harsh saying है, मैं उसको यहाँ नहीं कहना चाहूंगा, but long and short of it is that yes, we need to accord more respect and dignity and honor
Absolutely.
to
And
our
I would
veterans.
want every person, every civilian, every human being, every citizen of India to give that kind of respect to our veterans, our Jawans, our armed forces. I hope and pray that we see that change come in soon. And thank you so much, sir, for joining me today, for giving your valuable inputs to our viewers, sharing your experiences as a veteran of the Indian Army, and it was just an absolute honor to chat with you today. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Vishaka. The honor was equally mine, and you asked some very piercing and very good questions. And once again, before we end the program, I would like to compliment you on the wonderful job that you're doing. Initially, when you got in touch with me, I thought you were an army kid, or maybe somebody who had served a short stint in the army. And you have just taken up this cause uh, as a girl living in Mumbai. So this is wonderful, and I give you two thumbs up and a big Jai Hind myself. Thank you. May God bless you.
So here's wishing all the veterans of the Indian Armed Forces a very happy Veterans Day. A big salute to you from all of India for your courage, valor, and selfless service to the nation. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.